Today's a special episode because it's a 3-part episode. Part 1 is rooms that suck, problem rooms. Part 2 is a short movie review. And part 3 is the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day, one of your systems. And that's very, very cool. But part 1 is rooms that suck, problem rooms, rooms that sound bad. Now the thing is, I hear from Audiophiliac viewers all the time that they have a room that just doesn't sound good, and they say, well, what if I get a better amplifier or a better speaker or a better cable, or maybe I need a power conditioner. I've tried this, I've tried that. Should I get a rug? Should I get room treatment? Will this fix this? Will this do? And the answer is, sadly, no. No. Unfortunately, if your room is too live, too reverberant, if you clap your hands and you hear a slap echo, you hear crack when you slap your hands together. If you walk around the room and slap your hands and you hear whack, that's not good. That's not a good sign. You should hear some reverb to the room. Of course you should. But that kind of nasty, aggressive slap echo, that's an unpleasant sound. And that's just the clearest way to determine this kind of, problem. You can dampen it to some degree with soft furniture, a couch, chairs, rug, drapes, more soft things you put in the room to absorb the reflections in the room, the better. And of course, if you have mirrors or glass or pictures and things that are contributing to those reflections, that's not going to help. So yeah, if you have a lot of windows or mirrors in the room, that's an issue. So some of that you can control, and some of that you can't control. If you have marble floors or tiled floors, and you don't want to put carpeting or a lot of rugs over your tiled floors or marble floors, it's not a great place to have a hi-fi system. So these are problems, these are contradictions, if you will, in terms of enjoying music in rooms like that. Now, a lot of times you don't have a choice for the room that you're going to have your audio system in. These are domestic issues if you have a significant other, right? You have to make compromises in your life to save your relationship. So that's the way it goes. I understand. But in terms of you want your music to sound good and you want a fix, you want what we used to call a magic bullet that will make it all better, or at least better. I understand. But there's only so much that can be done. There's only so much that can be done. Yes, I know, of course, room treatment. Some of you are yelling at your screen, Steve, what about room treatment? Yeah, rugs, drapes, this is room treatment of a sorts. But yes, if you can squeeze in absorbers and diffusers, if that's domestically acceptable, yes, you should try putting room treatment on the side walls, behind the speakers, if that's okay. Yes, you should try that. That might help to some degree. Just bear in mind that for room treatments to be at all effective, you need lots of it. A square foot or two is not going to make much difference at all. You need a lot of room treatment for it to make much of a difference. Or bass traps to improve standing wave issues if you have boomy bass, a very thick bass, that sort of thing. So room treatments are not the magic bullet that's just going to make it all better. It just doesn't work that way. So whether it's your living room or a concert hall, if the dimensions, if the materials are not simpatico for acoustics, the music is not going to sound good. Okay? So hitting a diffuser or an absorber isn't going to just make it all better. Okay? I wish it was easier than that. I wish it was, but it's not. The only thing I can say that can help at all. Now, by the way, if your room is square or close to square in length and width, you're going to have bass problems. Chances are you're going to have bass boom, thick bass, muddy, thick, turgid, boomy bass. Yeah, sorry. And if your room is near a cube shape, length, width, and height, they're near the same, might be much worse. Maybe you should listen to violin concertos, acoustic guitar, something like that, something with no bass. I'm just kidding. Not an ideal place to listen to music, basically, is what I'm saying. Maybe headphones are something you should consider. Again, I don't know what to offer. Again, there are no easy fixes. The only help, the only thing I can offer you is to sit in the near field, meaning 3 or 4 or 5 feet away from the speaker. So it's really as simple as this. It's not a complicated concept here, right? The closer you are to the speakers, the higher the ratio of their direct sound is relative to the ratio of the sound bouncing around the room. That's it. It's like if you walk right up to the speaker, you will hear mostly the sound coming from the speaker. And as you get further and further away from the speaker, the less speaker sound you hear and the more of the sound you hear bouncing around the room. Now, you don't want to be right up against the speaker, that's for sure, right? But when you're 3 or 4 feet away, you're still getting a lot of speaker sound and less of the room sound. That's a practical solution. It may not be ideal in a lot of listening quarters. And remember, you can do this when you're listening, that is, put your chair right up close, and when you're not, put your chair or whatever further away. It's worth considering. I'm just throwing it out there as a workaround solution. I should have mentioned this sooner, but when you're in a very large room and you're sitting, let's say, more than 12, 14 feet away from the speakers, if you're sitting far away from the speakers, if you're definitely sitting 20 feet away from the speakers or more, you're going to be hearing more and more and more room sound, more and more reflections within the room, and less direct sound from the speakers, right? So you're going to get a very wet, highly reverberant sound from those speakers. That may be pleasant, and that may actually work for what you want. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but it may not be working to your advantage. But there are some things you can do in that situation. For one, use speakers that are directional, as in horn speakers. Horn speakers project sound forward. So clip speakers, JBL speakers, avant-garde acoustics, speakers with horn mid-range and tweeters would be, or even horn-loaded woofers, would be definitely worth thinking about in a very large room to deal with that. Because that way they're not just spreading and, let's say, splashing sound all around that very large room. You're going to project sound forward. It's kind of the way why horn speakers are used in movie theaters pretty much exclusively. Movie theaters behind the screen, they're not using direct radiating, meaning box speakers. They're always using horn speakers to project the sound forward towards the audience. So anyway, horn speakers for big rooms like that can help when you're listening at some distance away from the speakers. So now for the film review. And the film is a quiet one. It's a documentary about Bill Wyman. He was the bassist for the Rolling Stones from the beginning of the band, 1962 through 1993. Really long run. And the film, the documentary, is done, let's say, in the first person. It's narrated by Bill Wyman. Though he was a member of the band, you don't hear a word from Mick Jagger or Keith Richards or Charlie. No, it's just a story told by Bill Wyman. there's no other people saying that Bill Wyman is a genius bass player or a great guy or anything. No, this is Bill telling his story. He didn't do drugs particularly. He wasn't a party guy. He loved music. You get that? He loved having sex. Although he just kind of goes over that pretty quickly, but that was part of the thing he did get out of being in the Rolling Stones. But no, he wasn't a crazy guy. But what he did do during his time in the Rolling Stones was he took a lot of pictures of the band in performance, backstage, and he shot film and later on video. And he created a huge archive, which he now has in his home. So a lot of the imagery in the film is stuff that he shot in his time in the band, which is like for over 30 years. And that's pretty cool. So the film is his view of the band himself. And I think that makes for a very interesting documentary and his perspective on being a member of the band. Let's say a sane member of the band, like Mick and Keith are going nuts, and there's Bill just holding down the fort. I think that's an interesting perspective for this kind of film. By the way, I think that the bass player that followed Bill Wyman in the band, Darryl Jones, it's interesting that, talk about a quiet one, he's barely there. It's like when you see them perform from 1993 forward, there's barely shots of him playing. And you have to listen really closely to hear the bass. It's very, very strange. He's been there almost 30 years. I don't even know if they've made him a member yet. But in any case, Darryl Jones is the bass player for the Rolling Stones from 1993 to 2021. And if you weren't looking for him, you wouldn't know there's a bass player. I think that's very strange. But anyway, back to Bill Wyman. I think this is a beautiful movie. It's an atypical rock documentary. It does not fit the form. You come away feeling like you know this man. You know about his passion for music, what drives him, the satisfactions he has in his life after the Rolling Stones, his love of art, his love of life, his love of just being alive. So anyway, I highly recommend, if any of that appeals to you, A Quiet One is definitely worth checking out. And now on to part 3, the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. This one comes from David in Lafayette, California. The gear is all thrift store and yard sale finds from Sun City, Arizona in the early 2000s and is currently in day-to-day use. The amp is a Macintosh MC 7100. There's a Marantz receiver, a 2230, but it's actually used as a preamp. The cassette deck is a very snazzy Pioneer CTF 950. Turntable is a Pioneer PL510A. CD player, a Pioneer Elite DV46AV. The speakers are Concept CE2s. They were designed and built by ESS for the Pacific stereo shops in the 1970s. They feature 10-inch woofers and huge Heil air motion tweeters, and they also have 10-inch passive radiators. Dave says the sound is big, clean, and pure. Thanks, Dave. Hey, that was outstanding. If you like what I'm doing here, please give me a like and subscribe to this channel. And what else we got? Well, you could check out the Patreon, which can be found at patreon.com/Audiophiliac. There's a link to that in the description box. You can also check me out on Instagram at steve.guttenberg. But we also got playlists. We got playlists for speaker reviews and headphone reviews and electronics reviews, plus music reviews, and also interviews. Tons and tons and tons and tons of interviews. There's a link to them right up there. And I'm pretty sure my work here is at last complete. But yeah, please leave comments. I think I've been neglecting to say that but I'm going to say it right now. I've heard that the algorithm really likes comments. So if you haven't done that and you got something to say, please leave some comments. And now I can say my work here is at last complete. Thank you again for watching, and I really, really, really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.